Before we dive in, let me ask you this: have you ever done something kind without expecting anything in return, only to realize later that small gesture changed your entire life? Well, stay till the end of this heart-touching story, because the poor nurse in this tale didn't know that her old childhood doll, something she gave away in a moment of compassion, would lead her into the arms of a millionaire, a child's laughter, and a destiny she never imagined. If this story moves you even a little, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more stories that speak straight to the heart. Chapter 1. The Doll She Never Forgot. The hospital corridors smelled faintly of antiseptic, old flowers, and sorrow. Tired footsteps echoed down the cold tiles as Nora, a 26-year-old nurse in pale blue scrubs, rushed from one patient room to the next. Her shift had started 16 hours ago, and she hadn't sat down once. Her hair, once carefully braided that morning, had loosened into wisps that framed her soft, weary face. But her eyes, those wide, brown, tender eyes, still carried warmth. Nora wasn't like the others. Most staff left when their shifts were over, rushing home to families, warm dinners, and soft beds. But Nora lingered. She stayed for the patients who didn't have visitors. She stayed for the little kids afraid of needles. She stayed because this place was her life. She had no family waiting for her at home. Only a tiny rented room above an old bakery and a single item she had treasured since her own broken childhood, a worn-out cloth doll named Daisy. The doll had one eye missing and the fabric had thinned from too much hugging, but to Nora, it was a friend, a protector, a reminder of her late mother who once stitched it with trembling hands before cancer took her. Daisy was the only thing Nora had brought with her through orphanages, foster homes, nursing school, and life in the city. It was her comfort on sleepless nights, her anchor on days when the world felt too heavy. That morning had started like any other. Until room 308. Inside room 308 lay a girl of maybe 6, her tiny frame sunken into hospital sheets far too big for her. Tubes snaked from her arms. Her skin was pale, her lips dry, and her eyes haunted by pain and fear. Her name was Emily. She had been admitted late the previous night with acute pneumonia. No one knew where her parents were. She hadn't spoken a word since she came in. Nora had seen many sick children. But there was something about Emily. Something fragile. Something lost. The way she clutched at her blanket like she was trying to hold on to the world. The way her lips trembled as if she wanted to speak but had forgotten how. Nora's heart ached just looking at her. She sat beside her. "Hey, sweetheart," she whispered. "You're safe now. My name is Nurse Nora. I'm going to take care of you, okay?" Emily didn't respond. She just turned her face to the window and closed her eyes. That night, after her shift, Nora walked all the way back to her little room. She opened the top drawer of her dresser, where Daisy lay curled in her usual spot. She hadn't taken the doll out in months, afraid it would tear more. But something told her, this doll could do more good now than it ever did sitting in a drawer. The next morning, with Daisy wrapped in a soft scarf, Nora returned to room 308. Emily was still silent. Her charts showed no improvement. Nora sat beside her and gently laid the doll on the bed. "I want you to meet someone," she said softly. "Her name is Daisy. She's been with me since I was your age. She's really good at chasing nightmares away and keeping lonely hearts company." Emily peeked at the doll, curiosity flickering behind her sick eyes. Her fingers inched toward it, hesitant. At first, then clutching it tightly. Her lips parted, and for the first time since her admission, she spoke. "Mine." Nora smiled, her throat tightening. "She's yours now. I think she was waiting for someone like you." Tears welled in Emily's eyes. She hugged the doll close to her chest and nodded. That evening, her fever broke. By the next day, her oxygen levels stabilized. And the day after that, she smiled. Really smiled. The hospital staff said it was a miracle. Nora didn't say much. She just stayed close, watching the girl begin to heal, listening to her giggle in her sleep as she whispered to Daisy. Nora knew what that doll had meant to her. And now, she saw what it meant to Emily. But what Nora didn't know, was who Emily really was. 3 days earlier, Daniel Whitmore, one of the city's most elusive CEOs, had been on a red-eye flight returning from a business emergency overseas. As the founder of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in North America, he had everything: power, wealth, respect, but he was a single father navigating grief. His wife had died 3 years ago in a car accident, leaving him with a baby girl and a hole in his heart he could never fill. Daniel loved Emily more than anything. But between board meetings, court appearances, and sleepless nights with grief as his shadow, he was barely holding on. On the night of Emily's sudden illness, Daniel had been in transit. Her nanny, panicked, had called an ambulance. Somewhere in the chaos, Emily was taken to the hospital, but her identity wasn't properly logged. The hospital staff had no idea who she was. When Daniel landed, he was told his daughter was missing. For 48 hours, his world spun out of control. Finally, a nurse recognized a photo he'd shown and directed him to room 308. When Daniel walked into that hospital room and saw his daughter smiling weakly, holding an old, raggedy doll, whispering secrets into its ear, his knees gave way. "Emily," he choked, rushing to her side. She looked up. "Daddy." They cried into each other's arms, the doll crushed between them. Then she whispered something that would change everything. "Daisy saved me, but Nurse Nora gave her to me. She's the nicest person in the world." Daniel looked around. The room was empty, but the name burned into his heart. Nurse Nora. The next day, Daniel came back, not as a CEO, but as a father. He asked to meet the woman who gave his daughter her first smile after 2 days of fear and illness. When Nora stepped into the waiting room and saw the sharply dressed man with stormy blue eyes, she hesitated. "I wanted to thank you," he said, "for what you did for Emily. That doll, that gesture, saved her." Nora blushed, tucking a stray hair behind her ear. "She saved herself. I just gave her something to hold on to." Daniel reached into his coat pocket. "I don't know what you've been through. But this kind of kindness, it's rare. I want to help you, in any way I can." She shook her head quickly. "Please don't. I didn't do it for a reward." He smiled gently. "Then let me offer you something better." She tilted her head, confused. "What's that?" And then he said words that would echo in her mind forever. "A place where you'll never have to be alone again." The days that followed were like something out of a dream Nora never dared to dream. Emily recovered rapidly, her energy returning with each sunrise, her laughter spilling through the hospital like sunlight in winter. And Daniel Whitmore, who had once only existed in headlines and corporate gossip, kept coming back. At first, it was under the guise of checking on his daughter's favorite nurse. Then it became more than that. He noticed the way Nora spoke to the elderly patients with the same respect she'd give a king. How she stayed late when everyone else left. How the children clung to her, and the way she never asked for anything, not praise, not money, not attention. It was like she had lived her whole life pouring love into everyone else while forgetting herself. And Daniel, he saw it. All of it. For the first time since losing his wife, his eyes saw more than just grief, they saw someone worth holding on to. Nora, for her part, couldn't understand why this powerful, incredibly busy CEO kept stopping by the pediatric ward with coffee and pastries from the expensive bakery across town. Or why he knew exactly what days she was on shift. Or why he seemed to look at her like she mattered in a way no one had ever looked at her before. One rainy afternoon, Daniel found her in the hospital garden, sitting alone on a bench, staring at her phone. She didn't notice him approach. "Nora," he said gently. She looked up, startled. "Oh, Mr. Whitmore, you scared me." He smiled. "I told you to call me Daniel." She nodded. "Right, sorry. Force of habit." He sat beside her without asking. Silence settled between them, filled only by the soft patter of rain against leaves. "You okay?" he asked. She hesitated. "Yeah, just thinking." He glanced at her phone. She quickly locked it. He didn't pry. "Emily talks about you all the time. She said Daisy sleeps on her pillow now. Says the nightmares don't come anymore." Nora's smile was soft. "She's a strong little girl." Daniel's voice was quieter now. She needed someone to remind her of that. "You did. I can't thank you enough." She looked away, unsure how to respond. Then he said something that caught her off guard. "I looked you up." Her eyes widened. "You, what?" "I'm sorry if that's intrusive. I wanted to know more about the woman who saved my daughter's heart. I didn't expect to find someone who's been through so much." She stiffened. "You had no right." "I know," he said quickly. "And I'm sorry. But Nora, what I found didn't make me pity you. It made me admire you. Foster homes, working 2 jobs through nursing school, volunteering, always giving." She stood up, suddenly overwhelmed. "You don't know me. You don't know anything about what I've been through." Daniel stood too. "Then let me." She shook her head. "Why? Because your daughter smiled at my doll?" "No," he said, voice calm. "Because I see you. And I think you've spent your whole life being invisible. Her lips trembled, tears welling in her eyes before she could stop them. Don't, please don't say things like that unless you mean them. I do, he said. Every word. For the first time, Nora let the tears fall. Weeks passed. Emily was discharged with a clean bill of health. But instead of disappearing from Nora's life, the Whitmores became a constant. They invited her to lunch, then dinner, then to Emily's school recital. Nora resisted at first. She was just a nurse, she told herself. He was a billionaire. Their worlds didn't match. She had nothing. He had everything. But Emily didn't care. She would run to Nora with open arms like she was her whole world. And Daniel, he didn't see a poor nurse. He saw a woman who had built herself from broken pieces and still managed to love the world. It was Emily's 7th birthday when everything changed. They had a small party at Daniel's estate. Nora arrived awkwardly, unsure how to blend in with the polished guests and opulent decor. But Emily wouldn't let go of her hand all evening. After the cake was cut and the guests began to leave, Daniel pulled her aside to the back garden. I have something for you, he said. She laughed nervously. Daniel, you've done more than enough. He held up a hand. Just, come with me. He led her to a small glass conservatory lit with fairy lights. Inside, on a soft velvet cushion, sat something she hadn't seen in months. Daisy. But the doll looked different. Cleaned, repaired, restored. Nora gasped. You fixed her. Daniel smiled. I had her carefully restored. The same stitching, the same colors. I wanted to give her back to you. She walked over, touched the doll with trembling fingers. But she's Emily's. I asked Emily if she'd let Daisy visit you for a while. She said, only if you promised to visit us too. Nora chuckled through her tears. She's such a sweetheart. Daniel took a deep breath. Nora, I know this sounds crazy. We've only known each other for a few months. But these have been the best months since I lost my wife. You've brought light back into our lives. Into mine. She turned, eyes wide. He continued, I know your heart is scared. I know you've been alone a long time. But I'm here. I want to be here. Not just for Emily, but for you. If you'll let me. She stared at him, her walls crumbling. Why me? He stepped closer. Because you gave my daughter something no amount of money could buy. Kindness, safety, love, and you did it with nothing. You gave your last doll. Your last piece of comfort. That's who you are, and that's who I've been waiting for. She tried to speak but couldn't. So instead, she stepped into his arms and let herself be held. 1 year later, Nora stood on the hospital balcony, the city stretching out before her. She was no longer just a nurse. She was part of a family. Part of a story that defied logic and wealth. She still worked at the hospital, though Daniel often teased her about quitting. But she said helping people was her calling, and he understood. Emily called her Mama Nora now. And Daisy, she had a place on Emily's new bed, right beside a new hand-stitched doll that Nora had made with her own hands. One that Emily said she would give away someday too, to someone who needed it most. Just like her mama once did. Heart the end red heart. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every like helps us share more beautiful stories like this. And remember, sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness led to the biggest miracles.